right. When you're ready, Josh, take us away.
Cool. Okay. All right. So my name's Josh Huff, the MD and founder of CareLineLive. Some of you may know me before, but ultimately our platform is a complete home care management system. The aim for us is to digitize workflows and help you guys become more efficient and more effective, whilst also being able to deliver better care through having more time, etc. We were introduced to Linniar through some mutual connections, and we feel that the product that these guys offer has a really good kind of synergy with what we're offering, and ultimately kind of supports the ethos that was one of the reasons behind why I started the business, which is better information sharing and better information being available to friends, families, and those people that are involved in what we call the circle of care. So we've got Grant and Riona from Linniar here today to run through an introduction to their service. We're working on integration, and so linking up CareLineLive with Linniar, we expect to be available in the early part of 2024.
Great, thank you, Josh. So as Josh mentioned, my name's Riona Cusack, and I'm the operations manager at Linniar, and we're also joined today by Grant Lewis, our regional manager. So by now, I'm sure you're all aware of the changes that CQC are making towards their approach to assessment and regulation. So we know that those 5 key questions will remain the same and underpin assessment and rating assignment, but just how quality is evidenced against these questions will change. So CQC will be looking at adopting and promoting a more proactive approach to quality, halting those fixed time inspections you're currently used to, and basing assessments on a continual submission of data and evidence. So therefore, it's really important to now look into what systems you have in place to collect that data and evidence, and just to gauge whether they're well equipped to provide a holistic and representative view of your service. It's also important to note that with the government as well pushing towards digitisation, this new approach also brings about questions around what systems your service currently has in place, whether this is supported with that digitisation approach, and I guess from a personal perspective as well, whether these are streamlining your processes, reducing the burden of data entry and analysis, and are well linked to other systems and resources. So that's where the Linniar team comes in. So our approach to this new single assessment framework, or compliance more broadly, is simple. We've got an experienced content team who develop and write a series of self-assessments such as audits and surveys, so you can focus on what matters most in your service, so delivering that person-centered care. Our content team never stop reviewing our offerings to ensure that it not only meets your regulatory requirements and responsibilities, which includes the development of a CQC-ready evidence framework, but supports any sort of best practice guidelines that are out there too. So you can go beyond good and strive for that outstanding rating there. The evidence our system collects is robust, and it seeks to paint an end-to-end picture of your service's approach to quality and care.
Great, thanks, Riona. So look, as far as what our system does, there's 2 sides to it: the inputs that we're putting into the system, the inputs, and then also the outputs. So that's your reporting and things that you can use as evidence to submit to the CQC. Back to the inputs. So step 1 here, we see self-assessment. Like Riona said, that's through the form of audits and surveys, which are built into a schedule. So then basically we cover all the areas that are required or covered by the CQC, and we cover it with that content that we've purposely written for you to make sure you're compliant with the CQC requirements. We'll come to that schedule shortly. So once you've completed all the inputs on an ongoing basis, on a month-to-month basis, you'll log in and see what's what self-assessments you're required to complete. Once you've completed your assessments, the outputs will be available to you. Those outputs there's a plethora of management level reporting. That's showcasing how you're performing across the 5 key questions and the fundamental standards. but also benchmarking you against your peers. So whether that's we're also comparing apples for apples and oranges for oranges. So that means, if you're a home care provider, we're comparing you against other like home care providers. If you're in care homes, we're comparing your performance against that of care homes. It's not just against social care in general. It's across, like for like. If you feel like you're more bespoke, then those typical two areas that we work with. Then you might want to look at doing targets as opposed to benchmarks. Benchmarks instead. So targets means you can set what your expectations are for each of your services, and then what our system will do is showcase you how you're performing in each of the compliance areas you're looking to address for the CQC. Secondly, throughout that self-assessment process, if there are any issues identified throughout that process, what will happen is step 3 that you're looking at here. So it'll generate a plan for continuous improvement. So right now the CQC, it comes out for a single point in time, but what they're expecting you to do is identify any issues yourself. That'll be viewed favourably if you can identify issues yourselves and already have a plan in place. Less favourably if they identify them for you and then you have to put a plan in place. So what our plan for continuous improvement does is it allows you to generate a plan based on what issues you're having, but then also assign tasks to the relevant staff member to make sure that items are actioned to remedy what we're trying to solve. Great. So this is the schedule that I just mentioned. So with that step 1 that we just went through, self-assessment, we've got audits and surveys. This is how they're spread out throughout the course of the year. So all the content is already written for you. So that's an enormous time, that alleviates an enormous amount of time for anyone in your team in each facility or in each home care branch. What we then do is we build that out over the schedule throughout the course of the year. So an example here, you can see in January, there's H2.1 and H4.1.1 as a survey. The following month in February, H1.3, H3.1, and then that survey is still ongoing at the bottom there in February as well. So what this does is means when you log in, it already tells you which self-assessments you need to complete for that month, and all it is a process of following the bouncing ball. You don't have to figure out which surveys you're supposed to run, when, where, and what. It's already all built into it for you. Great. So like I said before, once you've run those assessments, this is one of the, the high-level reporting pieces you'll be able to see. So this is a performance dashboard across the 5 key questions and fundamental standards. We can then drill down deeper into each of them. But what we're seeing here at a high level is, the first key question, safe, how your performance is against that of the rest of against the rest of your peers. So obviously, if you're performing highly there, it's probably going to be seen favourably by the CQC. However, we can then drill down deeper into it and to see where we're performing well, where we probably require some improvement in that space, and that's where those plans for continuous improvement can be built as well. Now, the extra piece here is this reporting that we're looking at here and each of the drilled down reports within, they can all be used as a submission for the CQC. So throughout the year, whenever they request certain evidence, it's a simple lookup to see what, which evidence is required, and you can submit that directly. So it just really takes away all that thinking work, as all that work's already done and baked into the solution.
Great, thanks, Grant. So just moving on from that as well. So as I'm sure you're all aware, with that evidence being such a key piece in the lead up to the new approach, part of that process of collecting evidence and data involves visualizing it in ways that not only make sense to you as a service, but also accurately captures the care you're providing, as well as those lived experiences of those who both receive and provide care. So therefore, in the lead up to this new single assessment framework, I think it's the right time for providers to review what systems that you've got in place at the moment. So if you're using a digital system, is it displaying your data in ways that you yourself can understand? And are those visualizations suitable for the data you're collecting as well? I guess an extra bonus too, if you're using a digital system or not, is questioning whether they meet your specific internal reporting executive board needs as well. On the other hand, if you're using paper-based, it could also be a good time for you to question whether these current processes for collating and displaying your data are streamlined and time efficient, or questioning whether a digitalized system could perhaps assist in that there. Just to touch on what we spoke about earlier, so there's plenty of news out there, and we know the benefits of a digital system. So they're a great way to save time and ensure consistency in the data you report on. So the slide that's currently on screen now displays several different ways providers can chart and display their different self-assessment. And this specific example is how it will look on our Linniar system. So our system will pull the data that you've entered via a self-assessments and chart them according to the best sort of visualizations we think for that specific self-assessment or data collection method. So just as an example, for surveys down here, you can see that we're using a thing called a Net Promoter Score. So this is to summarize the percentage of people who do support the service or promote it. So in the sense that they're given a 1 to 10 scale of how likely are they to recommend the service. They score highly in that sense. And it also provides some insight into people who think the contrary. So those who provide a lower score in recommending it to friends, family, or whether the workplace is a suitable place to work for other people. For other sort of assessments, such as your audits, where we're asking different types of questions, we'll tailor the visualization to suit those questions as well. So you can see here, we'll use Likert scale, so a 1 to 5 scale for some questions, but we'll also use simple summaries as well, just so you can really quickly gauge and identify areas that are going well, and perhaps areas that require a little bit more attention and perhaps a plan for continuous improvement as well. Finally, for things that collect outcome-based measures, whether it be clinical or non-clinical data, we'll look at your data through like a process control chart, which senses to capture an idea of what's normal for within your service, and then flags you whenever these results fall outside of this range. So ultimately, I think the takeaway in this piece here is while these reports can be so important from an internal provider perspective, CQC will really find great benefit from these too. So with the lived experiences of, say, people and staff, audits and outcomes identified as specific types of evidence CQC will be requesting, reports like these can be submitted to that portal to evidence compliance against those specific quality statements, and can clearly capture your strengths and areas or opportunities for improvement in a way that's proactive as well.
Building out our PCIs, our plan for continuous improvement. So anytime that there are any issues identified, this is the module within the solution, which is where you'll really be able to come together with a plan. So as an example, we've got both home care providers and care home providers on the call today. If you've identified if there's an issue with increased falls, or you want to develop a plan for continuous improvement to decrease the falls within your home, or missed visits within your home care practice, then this is the area that you do it. So what we've done here as well is we've integrated with AI, specifically with ChatGPT, where we were able to ask ChatGPT to write us a plan for continuous improvement to help us with falls, or reducing missed visits in home care, or whatever it might be, and it will then scour the internet and find the best plan for you. We're not expecting you to rely solely on that. Your clinicians then will still cast their eyes over it, make any relevant changes they'd like to. But then it's an easy process of exporting that into basically a task plan. So it'll break it down. It'll break down the plan for continuous improvement on a task-by-task basis, where you're then able to assign each of those tasks to the relevant team member to complete it. Rhiannon will take us through that shortly, but those plans for continuous improvement are also massive pieces of evidence for us to use when making submissions to the CQC. Next here, we've got our quality indicator module. So this will be a huge part where we're integrating with care management systems. Like we mentioned at the top of the call, we've made a specific partnership with the guys at CareLineLive because we really like what they're doing in the space as a real innovator. But what this is showing us here is we'll pull in any data from that care management system. Specifically, we'll use CareLineLive in this example. We'll pull any information in from CareLineLive, and we can then report on the trends over a period of time. So there's enormous amounts of structured data there, but what we want to do is essentially shine the light on areas that require your attention. As an example, the way it works is, if you've got an average of 50 missed visits or 50 falls a month or whatever it might be, and then all of a sudden there's a spike or a significant dip within 3 or outside of 3 standard deviations away from that average, then what that means is it's a 1 in 1,000 occurrence. Now we want to draw your attention to that so you can put in place the appropriate action to remedy what's happened there, whether that be through a plan for continuous improvement or new policies, whatever it might be. We want to make sure we're drawing your attention to it. Additionally, this is great evidence for you to submit to the CQC because they can see on an ongoing basis how things are trending. If your falls have trended down over the course of 12 months, 2 years, or 6 months, or whatever it might be, we can display that for you, so you can show actual evidence that things are improving in areas you might not have been strong in before, or that you're still continuing to do really well in something that is a strength. We've got some examples on screen here, things that we can report on: missed services, clients on planned leave, staff incidents, falls, pressure ulcers, infection, medication errors. That's just an example list. There is, if it's recorded within the care management system, we can report on it and run these quality indicators pieces for you. There's some stuff that comes standard, and then if there's something extra you'd like, we can run that as a custom piece too. Great. So look, we're going to go through a quick demo short now, but it's just going to be very high level, just a few nice bits and pieces for you to have a look at and to consider. But if you'd like to have a deeper dive demo, there's the QR code there. Jump on the QR code, fill out your details, and we'll be in touch to arrange a deeper dive demo. However, yeah, we'll also send out the slides after this as well, so you can jump on that QR code or just message us through the website or however you'd like. Great. Over to Riona, but while we're going through it, don't forget to put any questions you've got in the chat, and we'll try and answer those towards the end as well.
Great. So I'm just moving on to the demo. I'll just be quick. I understand we're a little bit short on time this afternoon. So just starting on that scheduler that Grant went through earlier, we can immediately see for November what audits are applicable to us. So for this month, with this hypothetical home care service, we can see the H4.1 communication and information audit has been scheduled. And we've also got a specialist audit here for care and support environment, which operates on an opt-in basis. So it really depends on the type of care delivery you're providing. I know across home care and residential care, the type of care that's delivered can be so diverse. So we factored that into the schedule just to make sure that the audits we're targeting are suitable and respond to your care delivery needs there. Moving on to the platform, this is just a brief look of what it looks like here. So straight away, you can see any sort of plans for continuous improvement that are overdue or don't have a manager assigned. And we can also see the different tools that have been scheduled towards us for this month. So for November, we can see those 2 audits I spoke about earlier. And it looks like we've also got a survey scheduled for this month as well. Moving on, I'll just flick through Dash and show you how that looks on our end. So if we're just taking a look at this example here, we can see those 5 key questions that respond to before November, the CLOEs and fundamental standards are here. And from November, our audits are targeted towards both the CLOEs and quality statements. So as you complete your audits across the months, this will populate too. If we take a deeper dive into one of the key questions, we can see we've got an overall result for that CLOE as well as the different prompts, a result for each of those different Chloe prompts as well. Here you'll see a tabulated list of the audits that contributed to this score. So we can see organisational culture contributes to approximately 25% of this overall score, and then so on all through to social and community life. So this is a really great tool to submit to CQC in the sense that you can either send the snapshot of your performance against these quality statements and Chloe's, or you can drill down into individual audits as well, whether it be they ask, how have you demonstrated that you lead a well-led service across X domain? You can then provide them with this filtered audit that responds to those requirements there. Moving on to the PCI just quickly. So the PCI is linked to our tools. So anytime you complete one of our tools and that your results are either below the benchmark, worse than the last time you completed it, we'll filter these results for your attention here as well. Likewise, if you've received external feedback or a complaint, you can go ahead and create a new activity as well from scratch. The benefit of linking the PCI through our tools are that so many of the fields are pre-populated for you, which helps with data entry and saves you time in that sense, which I'll just go through now. So you can see here we quickly identify why we're the title, so what's been identified and the question, as well as some specific information surrounding your regulatory requirements against this question, and any sort of best practice guidelines or references as well that we use to develop it. Before we go any further, I'll just jump onto the AI, as it needs to scour the web to generate a nice result. So how this works is it serves as a point of inspiration. So we can ask it something like, how can we reduce falls in my nursing home? And while that answers, I'll just go through some different fields as well. So another benefit of our system is you can also add files, assign a risk rating, which then flow through to your PCI reports. And if you link through the PCI as well, any of the relevant Chloe's and quality statements are identified for transparency, which can then be filtered through. In the instance, CQC asks for activity plans against X key question or Y quality statement. Further, you can also assign a manager to the task, and they'll have they can then assign smaller sort of activities to help complete the task out. And then you can keep people, say your quality supervisor, in the loop as well. Just at the end here, we've also got some activity tags. These work very much in the same way as your social media hashtags, and are another great tool that you can use to filter through. In the instance, CQC asks for, I guess, anything relating to the DOLs or medicines optimization. Finally, you can set a due date, a priority, and the status. And once you close the status or activity, you'll be required to, I guess, produce a reflection of or an evaluation of the outcome of this task as well. Great, so now we can see that the AI has produced a nice plan for us. Like Grant said earlier, it's served as inspiration, so you can pick and choose bits that you'd like to include. Otherwise, if you're happy with the full plan there, if you add it to our plan, it copies it directly into the task plan, where you can then assign those tasks to other members of your team through to completion. It's then a matter of ticking those off as they're completed. Lastly, I'll just whiz through what those outputs will look like. So once you complete your activities, you can then filter through anything from the status through to the tags, whether it was identified on our system or outside of the system, as well as the Chloe's and quality statements we were talking about earlier. From here, you'll have two submittable pieces of evidence, depending on the level of detail you'd like to provide. We've got our activity logs, which just provide a nice high-level summary of each of the filtered activities, or a more detailed report, which outlines in more detail that source, so that information from our tools, priorities, and any sort of progress notes you make along the way. Right, I'll now hand back to Grant to close up.
Great, thanks very much, Rihanna. Look, guys, like we said, that's by no means a full demo. It's just a quick, high-level demo just to take you through some nice features. But we'd love to take, I guess, have a deeper chat with you. So there is our QR code there. You can jump on the website, fill out your details, and we'll be in touch for a deeper dive demo. And then, there's also some care home providers on the call that have also got home care businesses, so by all means, please jump on the CareLineLive guys' QR code there as well if you want to have a look at their product. It's also great, which is why we partner with them. I guess last things to wrap up, we're really cheap. So to do it all, creation of all the content, which is written by epidemiologists and PhDs, and then also mapping all that to the relevant quality statements and fundamental standards. All that work is done in the back end. It's scheduled in a timely manner. It's all that completed for you for £100 per service per month. So if you've got 3 home care branches and 2 care homes, then that would be £500 for your organisation per month. So like we said, it's super cheap. You'll then have, if you don't use us, you'll have to figure it out yourself in each of your services. So that's really where we've priced it, so it's cheaper than if you were to do it yourself. So please reach out. We'd love to take you through a deep dive of the full system. Anything to add, Josh?
No, I think just to kind of echo Grant's points there. We're partnering with Linniar because we believe they are a good value add solution to our product for those of you involved in home care, which gives you a more holistic and complete approach to the new single assessment framework and the rest of your business as well. So let us know what you think. If you are existing customers, we value your feedback and what you think Linniar offers as well. But otherwise, please reach out and we can go through things in more detail with you.
Right, look, pop any questions into the chat if there's any questions, but if there's any afterwards, feel free to send them through. We'll send all this information to you as a follow-up as well.